A resident of Raymond Terrace, Primer was runner-up to defending champion Chris Watson, enabling him to take the title from Matthew Whalen and Ken Bisley. Bisley also won the 250s, with Curry's Jamie Stouffer finishing third after taking out the 125s. From 2 wheels to 4, and Coola's Neil Morrison has taken out the State Long Course Off-Road Championship at Milbrodale near Singleton. Locals also featured in the Mountain Classic, with Peter and Lorraine Avery, Graham and Kathy Smith, as well as Graham and David Baxter, all successful in their classes. In cricket, the Newcastle's Howzat Women's B indoor side won its first state championship yesterday. The club's Masters team took out its 5th title, while Maitland's Masters were also successful in Division 2. And in rugby union, the Wildfires Colts' inspiring run came to an end in Sydney yesterday, knocked out of the semis by the Galloping Greens.
A special lesson outside the classroom. 240 students from kindergarten to year 6 creatively demonstrated what they'd learned throughout Children's Book Week. The annual event encourages parental involvement with reading and recognises authors with a string of awards. Coinciding with the golden anniversary of the Children's Book Council, library staff say modern-day distractions are wearing away the importance of literature.
Because it's that much easier to sit and watch television than make the effort of trying something that perhaps is going to be a little bit hard for them.
Having completed several novels, the students dressed up as their favourite characters, grades 3 and 4 celebrating with line dance. After learning about gardens, Grade 5 gave a dramatic recital of their own poem called Microbeast from Inner Space. The festivities have given a positive incentive for the children.
I do read a lot. I enjoy reading. It's pretty good.
With the continued development of literary skills, these children can look forward to a successful future. Katrina Hines, NBN News.
Over a statue of a little boy playing a violin. The monument is a replica of the 13-year-old child buried at the site. The grave was opened when the statue smashed through the roof of the tomb. The lead-lined coffin is cracked at one end. It will have to be treated before the tomb is resealed. Police were photographing the damage today, but they have few leads in their search for those responsible. Most of the destruction was to headstones.
Newcastle Council has some ambitious environmental plans for the city, and this is its blueprint for achieving those goals. The Environmental Management Plan was launched this week, with business leaders briefed on some of the ways the city is already leading the way and improving its performance. The restoration of Kooragang wetlands is one example. The project to rehabilitate 1,300 hectares of land is the biggest of its kind in the world. There's also the lighting of significant sites in the city. Tonight, new lighting at Civic Fountain will be dedicated. It's the latest landmark to be put under the project spotlight. Council is working with Orion Energy and developing a wind farm on Kooragang to put back into the electricity system what the lighting project takes out. They're also investigating the use of solar energy. But Council's not stopping there. It's made a commitment to stop using landfill for waste disposal by the year 2010.
And while industries will be encouraged to reduce emissions, the recent Metropolitan Air Quality Study found cars are the city's greatest contributor to the greenhouse effect.
Each day, 250,000 empty seats come into and out of the city, so Council will work with the NRMA in encouraging carpooling. By introducing these and other goals, Newcastle Council hopes to establish the city as a centre for environmental excellence.
That really reflects the community's vision that they would like the continued momentum of environmental improvement in Newcastle.
Classes at Newcastle University were cancelled by some academics in support of the student rally.
We estimate around 50 to 60% of classes were cancelled, and a lot of academics who couldn't cancel their classes because they were running to such a tight schedule did encourage their students to come along to the rally, said they wouldn't penalise them for not attending their classes.
It was a disappointing turnout. Organisers had expected several thousand people. Instead, about 100 took part.
A nice day like today, students could probably down at the beach or sleeping in, so it's hard to say. But yeah, hopefully more students will get involved in the future. But I think we've had a good turnout for our first off-campus rally in quite a while.
Speakers included student leaders and representatives from the union representing academics.
At the University of Newcastle, the academics are clearly concerned about their salaries, they're actually concerned about the possibility of severe limitations on their promotion prospects, and they're also concerned about the way in which Commonwealth funding is in decline.
Speakers reiterated their concerns about changes to Austudy and HECS fees for some students. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The Hunter area still has the third longest waiting list for elective surgery in the state, behind southeastern Sydney and southwestern Sydney. However, the wait is even longer at hospitals in the lower North Coast, Port Macquarie and the northwest regions, although there have been major reductions. The Central Coast was the only area reporting an increase in the waiting time. In the Hunter, the wait for a surgical bed fell by 4% on the previous month. There were more than 4,000 patients waiting for elective surgery at the end of July, down by 141. At the same time, the number of patients waiting between 6 and 12 months fell by 27%. Health Minister Raf Shorgi said he was pleased to see a fall in the number of Hunter patients. The lower North Coast has 1,128 on the list and 1,103 at Port Macquarie.
Power workers say they could be fighting for their livelihoods if the plan goes ahead.
They'll shut down stations like Munmora, Liddell and Wallerawang. That there'll be massive job losses. The associated mines will possibly close. So we're looking at, I believe, a lot of job losses.
A report before the Carr government, the Hilmer report, suggests a breakup of Pacific Power into 3 smaller groups to create more competition. And while it's early days yet, workers are still worried it's a scheme to make Pacific Power more appealing for an eventual sell-off to private enterprise. 400 Pacific Power employees met this afternoon at Doyleson near Newcastle to show their solidarity, with a statement from the meeting to be sent to the Premier's office. At least one member of the Carr government is against a carve-up.
Pacific Power would be best kept as a single unit.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
A field day at Kooragang Island today was aimed at boosting the mutual aid group's profile. Since the program began 5 years ago, nearly 70 industries have joined 3 groups based at Carrington, Mayfield and Kooragang.
We've brought about better rapport and empathy amongst these organisations where they assist one another. They give their manpower, their equipment to all go to one particular incident scene.
The latest in firefighting materials were displayed. An array of safety equipment, supplies, information and rescue devices also on show. Quick action in the first crucial moments of a hazardous incident involving gases, acids or chemicals can make a huge difference in helping emergency crews bring the situation under control. Not only have mutual aid groups helped industries fine-tune their own emergency response procedures, the scheme has provided an extra safety net when it comes to protecting the environment. Manufacturing, transporting, storing and handling hazardous materials can have its problems.
There's been at least 2 or 3 incidents, and I'm pleased to say that the mutual aid groups are working in close conjunction with the local government authorities, New South Wales Fire Brigade, who are the hazmat authority, and other corporations.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Ryan is now based in Sydney but frequently returns to train in Newcastle as she did this afternoon. The 24-year-old will face different conditions in France, where she hopes to defend the title she won in South Africa 2 years ago. The first woman to hold the World Cup and Championship at the same time, she'll be one of 7 Australians taking part. In netball, Charlestown will look to continue their run in Division 2 of the State Netball League tomorrow night. The Mavericks take on Penrith in the final in Sydney, the winner to meet Baulkham Hills in the title decider. In Hockey West, captain coach Stephen Deering plays his 300th game in the Newcastle competition on Sunday. Deering made his debut 18 seasons ago against Norse, West's opponents this weekend. Semi-finals kick off in the local rugby union premiership tomorrow. Waratah and Merewether Carlton playing for the right to meet Singleton, while it's sudden death on Sunday between Wanderers and Mayfield East. And it's quarter-final time in soccer, with 2 matches tomorrow, while Highfields take on Lakes and Edgeworth confront Hamilton on Sunday.
It's come out of the blue, the Carr government opening up the freight rail system to competition.
Allowing the private sector to use their own rolling stock to run rail freight services in competition with other private operators and the public sector.
It's a move that Hunter Valley coal companies have been pushing for over years, saying private enterprise can do the job better than the government service, a claim endorsed by the Regional Chamber of Commerce.
I think we can show from the private enterprise side that we can probably outdo what has currently been shown by the freight rail.
GrainCorp confirmed today it is keen to investigate the possibility of using private enterprise to carry grain by rail. Not surprisingly, the unions have been stunned by the move, claiming jobs are on the line.
You get announcements like this, it's got to put in everybody's mind that works for freight rail at the moment just how secure is my job.
The move to introduce private enterprise by a Labor government has disappointed the union. Similar policies were suggested by a former Liberal Premier Nick Greiner. The Labor opposition of the time ridiculed the idea. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Like Newcastle, the Suns have been one of the big improvers in the National Basketball League this season. One of their 7 wins included a 94-86 home victory over the Falcons, a feat they will be keen to repeat, particularly Derek Rucker, who was averaging 31 points a game, the second highest in the competition.
Derek will be coming back to look for a big game here in Newcastle. He's still got a lot of friends down here, and he's a very talented player, so we're going to have to do the job on him defensively, and Tyson is doing a great job for them inside as well.
The league's leading rebounder, Reggie Smith, will have the job of marking Tyson, who is second on the boards. Throw in the Hayes, Rucker, Jensen, Dickinson individual contests, and things should be tight.
And so it'll be a good matchup, and I think the Knights are going to win as well. So it'll be a great weekend for Newcastle.
A lesson in the history of the atomic bomb prompted these Year 10 South Grafton High School students to act. Worried about the effects of the proposed nuclear tests in the South Pacific, they collected signatures from the entire school. The petition has been presented to Member for Page Harry Woods, who will join politicians from all over the world at a protest in Tahiti next week.
They've gone to the trouble of collecting a petition of protest against the French government. It's been signed by nearly everybody in the school, 955 students, 45 teachers, and I'm taking that to Tahiti.
The students say their message is plain and simple.
Do it in our own country and not put it in our country for us to worry about.
We don't want it in the South Pacific, and we don't want it anywhere else, anywhere where there's human beings or live animals.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
It was an embarrassing mistake. Around 8 this morning, the New Zealand dredge with 7 people on board swept in close to the rocky opening to the Tweed River and hit trouble.
It's seen to get hit by 2 or 3 large waves and washed onto the sandbar on the south wall.
The 61-metre-long dredge has been working the river for 5 months, the crew aware of the tricky conditions. The area has a history of creating problems for sailors. Captain Cook named it Point Danger. More than 30 vessels have been sunk in these waters. Rescue crews hope to refloat the latest victim on tonight's high tide in about 3 hours' time. A tug is coming down from Brisbane to help out. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Mark Glanville was sporting a face only a daughter could love this morning after a fierce head clash brought his season to a shuddering halt on Friday night.
Yeah, I collided heads with Les Davidson, probably not the best head to come in contact with, but yeah, he sort of launched his head into my cheekbone. I knew I'd done something fairly ordinary.
Ordinary enough to have 2 small plates and 6 screws inserted into his face. But true to character, he still maintained his sense of humour.
I'll be the Elephant Man for a few more days, I'd say.
Tony Butterfield, who's been struggling with an ankle complaint, is likely to return to take Glanville's place, while several Knights are struggling with injury but are expected to play. Glanville confident Newcastle can break their losing streak on Friday night.
But the good thing is we'll be playing North, who haven't been going that well, and admittedly it's another Friday night game, but I think we can overcome that, and I'm sure that the boys can do well.
Meantime, the Gold Coast Seagulls are meeting with the ARL in a bid to unravel their future, and yesterday expressed their disappointment at the current situation.
It's very disappointing when you know a fellow club just up the road, the Crushers, have reportedly got 2.5 million. We've got nothing, and they're down here trying to get our players. I mean, you know, we're not dills. We're going to fight, and we're going to fight all the way.
Today's announcement by the state's Energy Minister ended months of speculation at Orion's Wallsend-based headquarters. 6 big power companies will be formed. Orion will join with Sydney, Illawarra with Prospect, Broken Hill will be independently corporatised, while 20 small rural distributors will merge into 3 corporations.
Sydney and Orion will be the largest electricity distributor in Australia.
In a draft report prepared by the Industries Review Board, it was first suggested Orion merge with Prospect. The decision to join instead with Sydney has been welcomed, although the huge changes will mean job losses.
I think that there'll probably be some rationalisation of management positions, probably as a first stage in this, yeah.
Still to be resolved is the issue of which distributor will serve the Hunters coal chain.
We will still be having an input into the analysis that the government still is putting in place to keep a coal chain or a very significant part of the coal chain together. So, yeah, that'll be, I'd say that won't be resolved for at least another month yet.
The Minister's decision means Orion will effectively be split in half. Yet to be decided is whether the Hunter-based headquarters will be in charge of the new corporation's lines maintenance business or the retailing of electricity to households and companies. Orion will be pushing to take over the latter option when company representatives meet with Minister Egan in Sydney tomorrow to discuss implementing the reforms. Melinda Smith, NBN News. According to the man who's overseeing the city's election process, the phones haven't stopped ringing.
I think panic probably is a good word to describe a lot of it.
Council has delivered more than 50,000 Where to Vote brochures to residents, warning of a $100 fine if they fail to go to the polls on election day. The deadline to apply for postal votes is next Monday, but so far only half of the expected 6,000 forms have been returned.
Well, I think a lot of people have found that they're running out of time to do things. They're going away, or they've got a wedding on, or their parents are ill, or whatever the case may be, and they really need to vote, but they haven't left themselves enough time to complete the formalities.
Pre-poll voting is well underway, with more than 1,100 votes already taken. 69 polling booths will be set up throughout the city's 4 new wards on September 9. The electoral office warning voters to make sure they stay within their boundary when casting their vote.
And we've tried to hammer this message home that voting in their ward is the only way that they can vote on the Saturday. There is no such thing in this election as absentee voting.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
It's been a hard few years for farmers. There was some rain 3 months ago, but the big dry is biting deeper. 67% of the state is in trouble, and now all of the Hunter. At Martindale near Denman, the Hordern family is doing it tough. This year's wheat crop is starting to wither. Last year's crop was a failure. The danger now is a shortage of water. Dams are drying up and there are precious little underground supplies. So what happens when the water runs out?
I don't know. I just hope it doesn't come to that. I don't want to think of that, but you've probably in the back of your mind a little bit, but I just hope that doesn't happen. I don't know how to answer that actually, because I don't know what would do.
This just about sums up the crisis here for local farmers. The Goulburn River, it's just nothing but sand. 2 weeks ago the flow stopped and the water holes dried up. And in these times of adversity, the banks are pressuring the repayment of overdrafts, leaving some people on the land with nowhere to turn. Rural Councillor Andrew Badgery has called on farmers to stand their ground.
It's going to be very tough for the next couple of years, but the most important thing is for farmers not to panic at all if banks put pressure on them.
Farmers are asked to see an accountant or a rural councillor. The best help would be from the skies, but predictions are that rain is unlikely inland for at least the next week. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The Multimedia Education Package is a joint effort involving the Hunter Area Health Science Council and the Area Health's Medical Communications Unit. A computer is used to integrate the different pictures and sounds involved, which are then projected onto a screen. What's in a Cough is designed not only to follow the story of what happens when young Sarah becomes sick and goes to hospital, but allows onlookers to go behind the scenes of the medical problem.
When they get a sample taken in hospital, they have no idea what happens to it. Their parents have got no idea what happens to it. And we feel that this is a golden opportunity to show them what really does happen. And there are scientists, doctors and technicians that work behind those things to help them get better in hospitals.
The prototype, launched at Jules Primary School today, is being tested among gifted and talented students in Lake Macquarie.
I thought it was a bit disgusting, all the bacteria, but it was really interesting. Books are sort of boring and it's more fun to watch something. Like more people sit down to watch TV than read a book.
Although it's in the early stages, designers believe the innovative package has a huge potential as an educational tool.
What we're hoping to be able to do in the near future is to burn it onto a CD-ROM so we can take it around to different schools and show school children and their parents at various meetings in the evenings and so on precisely what the kids saw today.
There were smiles of relief in the Knights dressing room last night, with the coach and players cautiously optimistic.
I believe with that type of football we can beat anybody, but you know we've got to learn not to give too much away.
The difference was their attitude was different. You know, in the last 5 or 6 weeks we'd be getting down and do drastic things, but we kept our composure and just kept going on to eventually crack them.
Harrigan, along with fellow front rower Tony Butterfield, were a driving force in the 20-10 victory. Butts' non-stop performance rewarded with the try that sealed the match in the 76th minute after the Knights had 5 others disallowed.
It was pleasing to see us creating opportunities for ourselves, regardless of whether or not they were converted into points. We were still laying opportunities on, and that last one was a bonus. Yeah, I was pleased to get the hand to it.
He was one of 5 who required painkillers to take the field, as was Andrew Johns, with brother Matthew the only real concern after the morale-boosting win.
Matt's a bit of a fairy, you know. We always have to look after him on the field, but no, he's got a couple of zippers in the lip. He's got about 9 stitches and 10 stitches. It'll be 12 tomorrow and 14 by the weekend. And lucky he's getting married next January. I don't think no one will have him, but.